Hello, and thank you for joining the Black Dad Chronicles. I am your host, Courtney McIntosh, and this week's episode is part of a series I am going to do that I call This Is Me. Inspired by the NBC show This Is Us, a little bit of background. I've only watched 3 episodes of the show. Just so happened to be the last 3 episodes. Basically the build up to Jack's death and the aftermath. Now, I haven't watched this week's episode yet. But it forced me, watching those 3 episodes kind of forced me to reconcile some things that I hadn't yet done yet, when it comes to my father's death and how that affected me. So I'm going to get that started this week. So let's get right into it. Start the show. What's going on, everybody? My name is Courtney McIntosh. I am your host. This is the Black Dad Chronicles. And I want to thank you for tuning in each and every week, enjoying my unique perspective on fatherhood, the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, and all that in between. You can follow me on Twitter at @hi_I'm_Court. You can find me on Instagram at Black Dad Chronicles. And you can also be involved with the conversation by joining the Black Dad Chronicles Facebook page. So just go to www.facebook.com/the Black Dad Chronicles. Let me make sure that URL is correct. It is correct. So, like I told you guys before, this week's episode, and probably the next few episodes, was kind of inspired by the show This Is Us. Yes, it is www.facebook.com/the Black Dad Chronicles. It is. It's amazing how, whatever. Anyway, so this most recent episode, like I said, this episode and probably the few episodes to follow were inspired by the hit NBC show This Is Us, and they have forced me to kind of reconcile my feelings and how I dealt with the death of my father and grief and all that stuff in between. I watched, so like I said, I've only watched 3 episodes of the entire show. Just 3. And it just so happened to be the last 3 episodes. So what that did was it kind of, forced me to reconcile, my father's death. So I was 10 years old, living in Detroit, Michigan. My mother and father were divorced, have been divorced since my sister and I were 4. My little brother was just over 1. And we're my mom's kids. I have an older brother who let me see, I'm about to turn 37. He'll be 40 this year. Jeez, man. That sounds crazy to think about. And not only did it happen to reconcile my feelings about my father, the first thing it did was it made me kind of focus kind of heavily on my own mortality. So since I turned 30 years old, my main goal in life, okay, so some background. My father was 40 years old when he died of a massive heart attack playing basketball with his friends at the Thomas and Mack Center at UNLV, because he lived in Vegas at the time. He was, I think my mom said, over 400 pounds or very close to 400 pounds. He was only like 5'11". So he was, overweight. My mom said that, the doctor had been telling him that he wouldn't take medicine that he was prescribed to, control, his issues and stuff like that. And ultimately he paid the price at 40 years old. So that age, 40, has kind of just been stuck in the back of my mind, right? So since I turned 30 years old, I have been determined to not be my father. So there was a scene in and This Is Us, I want to say 3 episodes ago, where Randall and Kevin, the two boys on the show, Randall and Kevin, they're grown men now. And I didn't realize This Is Us was shown like halfway in flashbacks and then, halfly in, real time, quote unquote. So it kind of confused me at first because, I'm like, man, everybody loves Jack on This Is Us. And then I'm like, yo, how is Jack going to die? But Jack is already dead. It's kind of like, yo, man, it kind of like, it was screwing my head for a little bit. So then I realized, because, my wife and I had made plans to watch it, and then she started, I guess I was taking too long, so she started watching without me. So she's all caught up, So, it was really confusing to follow at first. So, it was one scene a couple episodes ago where Randall and Kevin were talking. It was the episode before Randall and his wife bought the apartment complex. Randall and Kevin were talking, and Randall said, man, I don't see myself getting old. And, Kevin, he was like, Dad's already been gone, longer than we had him. Because it's coming up on the 20th anniversary of Jack's death in the show. Well, in their lives of the show. Shout out to Milo Gosh, I never know how to pronounce his last name. Milo Vitermilia. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. But I first started watching him as Peter Petrelli on the NBC show Heroes. That was my dude. But anyway, he's playing great as Jack. So he said, Randall says, Kevin, Dad's already been gone longer than we had him. He said he doesn't see himself being an old man. And then Kevin tries to add some levity to the situation and says, man, you're going to be a great old man. And man, that hit me because in my life, I guess I never saw myself being an old man either, even though I have kids. And it's something I've never really thought about it, I guess, but it's like I've never seen myself like that. And it's like, yo, man, I wonder if my dad saw himself being an old man. And it just brought up all this whole wave of emotion. I had a breakdown that night. I'll be honest, man. My kids was checking on me, my wife. I just had a breakdown emotionally. And it was kind of like because, the last couple months I've told y'all I just haven't been right, emotionally, spiritually, and stuff like that. So it's just like this culmination and just wave of emotion. I had a breakdown. I'll be honest, because I never, I don't think I've now it's kind of easier now to picture myself being an old man because hell, I got a kid going to high school next year. Jeez. But so like I said, it brought up some feelings. Like I wonder what my dad was thinking about in his 30s, leading up to the age 40. Because since I turned 30, my whole sole goal in life is to not be my father. My whole goal in life is to not end up with him, like him. I want to see my kids grow up. I want to be there for their graduation. I want to be there for proms and homecomings. Want to teach CJ how to shave and, how to interact with girls. And I want to make sure that I'm there so Liv and Jazz see the example of how a man is supposed to treat them. Those are goals that I have for my life. Those are things that I live for. I don't want my wife to be left struggling, trying to parent the kids, and I'm not here. That's one of my biggest fears, not being here to see all the important things in my kids' lives. And that's scary. And I guess the thing that made it more scary is the fact that I'm about to turn 37 years old, which is 3 years away from 40. So it's kind of like, damn, is this going to be it? Because in 3 years, CJ will be 16, soon to be 17, be close to graduating from high school. Shit, I can't believe I just said that. He'll be, graduating from high school in a year. And if I'm dead, I won't see that. I won't see Liv go to middle school. I won't see Jazz go to high school. Those are all the things I've been thinking about lately. And it's really taking a toll on me emotionally. And I've never once thought about, ever talking to like a therapist or something like that. And it's not because I kind of like look down on therapy. It's just, I just was like, what do I need therapy for? But I realize the older I get, the more and more I might, it couldn't hurt. It might not be a bad thing. I actually have a therapist friend, who I go to church with, and, she kind of got me to open up a little bit and just talk, but I'm like, yo, I ain't trying to, have a sit down, have a session, and you ain't getting paid for it and stuff like that, So, and then I realized another thing, like, I don't know who my father was. My earliest memory of my dad is second grade. My sister and I we lived on Dexter and Bork, right on the corner house. Right across the street was our neighbor, Mr. Bell. Old guy, always took care of us, always, looked out for my mom, watched the house. He, just a good, genuine dude. So, Turner was like 6 blocks from the house. So all the kids in the neighborhood had to walk past our house to get to school. So, we walked to school with all our friends in the neighborhood. So one day, second grade, and it's wild because the school only went up to third grade. But one day, second grade, came in the house, and my grandfather was usually in the house waiting for us to get home from school, or if it was like, bad weather or something, he would pick us up. But, he kept my little brother, who was 3 years younger than us, while my mom was at work. So one day, get to the house, Gramps is sitting on the couch. It's another dude, light skinned, with a big old smile on his face and a nappy beard, sitting in a chair across from Gramps. So my sister and I walk in the door, and he just greets us with this huge smile. Now, I do remember that. So I go over to Gramps. Let me see. So Liv is 7, so she's in the second grade. So I was probably about 7, 8 at the most. And, it had only been 4 years since my parents had divorced at that time, I guess, because, we were 4. My sister and I were 4. I do have a twin sister. So we were 4 when, mom and dad divorced. So, he says, hey, I miss you guys, or something like that, I guess. And so I just walk over to Gramps. I don't know where Muff is at this point, my sister. Whenever y'all hear me mention Muff, it's my sister, Carlin. Her nickname is, Muffin. So whenever y'all hear me mention Muff, that's what I'm talking about. So I don't know what Muff was doing at this point, but I just walked over to Gramps. I'm like, Gramps, who is that? And I just buried myself in Gramps' arms. And he was like, that's your dad. That's Big Mac. And it's like crazy that in 4 years' time, I totally, I guess, forgot who my father was. Which, that sucks, you know what I'm saying? But I guess when you're that young and you don't see somebody for 4 years, you probably tend to forget. So like the first memory I have of him is like, that moment. And, Gramps is like, oh, that's your dad. That's Big Mac, because that's what they used to call him. So walked over to him, gave him a hug. For the longest time, I still remember, and and the feeling, I guess, since I've been thinking about this coming back, like I remember how his beard felt on my face, as I was hugging him, which is weird, but my mom always would say, like, yo, he's the only man I ever met who his beard was just nappy, you know. So that's all I remember about that time. My second memory with him is he came to visit us for Christmas one year, and he took us to see Little Mermaid. And I remember, and I used to always laugh because the theater we went to was called the Town Theater. It's on in Southfield or in Greenfield, between 696 and 11 Mile. And now that it used to be a Kmart because my sister used to work at the Kmart, and now it's just an empty building. So I remember that memory. I do have a few memories that aren't as clear of, you know, the times that we went out to Las Vegas. But it's weird because, like, another main memory that I have is, like, my reaction to when my mom got the call that when he had died, and going out there to visit, going out to California to visit with all my relatives. And it's weird because, you know, as a kid, you see things and you know, kind of like integrate them into, you know, how you think, whatever. So like you see somebody doing something, you want to mimic that, right? So I just remember myself with my mom, and I was the first one downstairs because I was in the bathroom, and at our old house, the bathroom was right on the top of the stairs with the door open. And it was late, man. It was like maybe 9 o'clock or something like that. And I remember hearing my mom answering the phone, and I remember her kind of like cry out, like kind of shriek. And so I was the first one downstairs, you know, to check on my mom. And so we had two phones in the house, right? Gramps liked to keep two lines. We kept one at the bottom on this little table stand at the bottom of the stairs, and then we kept one in the living room, you know. So my mom was at the, you know, the one in the phone right by the end of the stairs. I mean, at the bottom of the stairs, and I heard her, you know, kind of like cry out, and I could tell she was upset and she was crying. And then I came downstairs and she told me what happened. And I remember, like, the tears were real. The pain and the sadness I felt were real. But I also think I kind of embellished my reaction because, you know how in you know, cartoons and stuff, you know, you'll see the character be like, no! And they pan, you know, going up higher and higher. That's kind of how I saw myself. Because I remember we had this little black cloth, not cloth, but it was kind of like a black foam chair in the living room, and I was just like laying, and it had like a little ottoman in front of it, and I was like on the ottoman like, no, and it's like my dad's going, I ain't know him, and I don't remember how my brother and my sister reacted. I don't. I was sick, man. So then we flew out to California, you know, for the funeral. And now my dad wasn't the youngest. I want to say my Aunt Glenda was the youngest. My Aunt Connie's the baby, and Connie's still alive. And you know, last year I made a vow to call her once a week, and I just, you know, I kept it going, and I just stopped. I don't know why. And Auntie, I'm calling you today as soon as I get off work. It's 10:02 in the morning. I'll be off around probably around 3:30. I'm gonna call you today, I promise. You know. So I don't, and at the funeral, you know, I remember, you know, going out to California, you know, just being around my cousins and stuff, cousins that I didn't know, but, you know, cousins that, you know, just family. And I do remember, because, man, we flew into Vegas, and we flew into Vegas, and then, so we flew into Vegas, and then we drove to California. So it was me, my mom, my brother, and my sister, my dad's friend Cheryl, and her daughter Christy, who was like my cousin. Christy Ferris, she's an actress out in Hollywood. She's been in a lot of things. Shout out to Christy. Who else? It was my dad's friend E, who ironically was, they used to go hoop and record their games and stuff like that. So ironically, E was, recording the game that day. And, got the whole thing on tape, basically. And I'm watching it play back in my head as we speak right now. All of a sudden the camera goes to my dad, and he's like, on the ground, just kind of like on his back, and he rolls over to his stomach and is like gasping for air and gasping for air. And I remember that, and I'll never forget, it was a long time before I could watch that tape. I remember it sitting on the shelf, titled Deb's Tape, edited by E, and I knew what it was. And I didn't watch that tape till I was like 16, 17 years old. I was probably 17. But so I remember, we flew into Vegas, then we we drove to California, we drove overnight. I remember just, looking out the window at the stars the entire night, man, just, and it's not like we flew out to Vegas immediately. It was, it was like a couple of days, and, so I remember one of the stops we had to make was, we stopped in San Francisco. San Francisco was the craziest thing. San Francisco weather was the craziest thing I've ever experienced, because we got there early in the day. We were wearing shorts, tank tops. Then around 4 o'clock, man, the fog rolls in. My mom is like, we're at the docks, at the pier, and my mom was like frantically looking for all of us, some jackets. And I remember, when we flew into the airport in Vegas, airports was different back then. But flew into the airport in Vegas. I remember that I saw these like sunglasses that was kind of roll-up sunglasses. They reminded me of Bret Hart's glasses. You know what I'm saying? Because I was a big wrestling fan, man, and Bret Hart was my favorite wrestler, the Hitman. And I remember I saw these sunglasses, and they looked like his glasses. So I'm like, Mom, I gotta get those. So she bought them for me, and we got a picture. I got a picture around the house somewhere. It's me in these goofy ass blue shorts with my sister, my little brother, Christy, my mom, E, and we got these jackets on and shorts, and I got those glasses on, So I wore those glasses to the funeral too. And I was crying and stuff. And then my mom just revealed to me the other day, like, my sister didn't cry, what I'm saying? My mom said she could tell she was upset. She could tell she was sad, but she didn't cry. But it was just like, I remember sitting in the front row. I don't even know if my older brother was at the funeral. I don't think he was. Sorry for my phone going off. But, I don't, all I really remember from the funeral is like my Aunt Connie, what I'm saying, just, I don't remember, what my Uncle Babe was doing. I don't remember what my Aunt Rita was doing. I don't remember what my Uncle Benny was doing. I just remember Connie just screaming out, my baby, my baby. And she was just, draped over the casket. And it was just like, what I'm saying, like one of the saddest things I ever saw. And then like my mom was the last person. I don't know if she was the last person to go view the casket, because we didn't like, view the casket when we first walked down. So it was like at the end, and that's all I remember. And then my mom, I remember my grandma viewing the body. And I remember my mom, saying the exact same thing as my Aunt Connie. And it's like, man, I'm so like me and my mom have become like best friends. Like my mom is one of my best friends. And I mean, I'm with her pretty much every day. She's my workout partner, and it's just like, man, as a mama's boy, seeing that just, man, shatters your heart in pieces. So I remember just feeling, at that point, I was just feeling sad for my mom. And it was just like, the older I got, I wish my mom, my mom spent so much time dedicated to us that, which, shout out to her for, because she didn't have to. She could have shut down, she could have found a man and, didn't even, but my mom just focused on us, and it was like, damn, her happiness, I gotta make sure my kid's straight. And that's what she did. And it's like, the older I got, the more and more I wish my mom had, a man in her life, So, I never really talked about my dad's death, just because, and it's weird how, like I said, I didn't really know him. So I'm kind of, mentally, I'm kind of confused. Like, how can you love somebody you really don't know? You know what I'm saying? And reconciling that is tough. And it's not like, my dad was around. He was just some absentee bum who didn't want to have nothing to do with his kids. You know what I'm saying? He died at 40. So the age of 40, man, it's scary. It is really scary. And I know, look, man, that was my dad. It's not necessarily going to be me. It's like, I'm determined for my story's going to end differently. God willing, my story is going to end differently. Like, if you ask me if I could sit down and have a conversation with my dad right now, I'd do it. Yeah. But if you would ask me between like my dad or my grandfather, who would I rather sit down and have a conversation with? It'll be Gramps. But I'll get into that next episode. So yeah, like turning, the fact that I'm getting, it's like, the fact that I'm getting older, it's like, my son is taller than my wife now. My wife's not the tallest human being. She's only like 5'2". But my son is 13 and he's taller than her. Jasmine, my oldest daughter, is almost as tall as her, and she's 11. And it's like, dang, they're not babies no more. And it's like subconsciously, and I haven't been trying to do this on purpose, but subconsciously, I've been like going back and looking at pictures of the kids and getting sentimental, and it's just like, yo, man, tomorrow's not promised, so I can't necessarily like operate with, I ain't gonna die tomorrow, because I very well could, and it would suck, because tomorrow's not promised to no man. And it's been tough dealing with it. So I guess I'm trying to use this and probably these next few episodes as sort of therapy. Hey man, I ain't got no insurance right now, so I can't necessarily afford a therapist. So I'm talking to you guys. I'm talking to the audience. Man. My goal in life, ever since I found out Robin was pregnant, is to be there. It is to not be my father, like I said. And even more so since I turned 30. But, when I found out Robin was pregnant, it was like, yo, everything I did from that point on, I tried to do, with the future in mind. I was working at Walgreens. I realized I couldn't support a family, working at Walgreens. So I joined the military, and I was like, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. Let's try to make the military a career. And for the longest, when the first 2 years I got in, I'm like, oh, yo, man, I'm just doing my 5 years and I'm out, man. I'm just trying to get that GI Bill so I can go back to school. And then it's like, yo, I really kind of like this. I really can make a career out of this. Something that I've never imagined having. Let's do this. I'm going to do this. So I try to buckle down. And then it's like, oh, you got sleep apnea. You're not fit for sea duty. So we're not going to be able to let you re-enlist. And when I found that out, it was just like, dog. But man, coming back, going to school, thinking I'll find my career, but still finding time, turning down opportunities because it was going to take away too much time from my kids. I don't want to sacrifice time with my kids at all. I know, in some instances I'm going to have to. But I want to be with my kids as much as possible. To let them learn from the mistakes I've made. Like I'm trying to teach, CJ right now, like, yo, I made mistakes when it comes to school. All throughout my life. And I see you going down that same path. And I'm trying to impress upon you that you don't want to make the same mistakes as I did, because look where I am. I am soon to be 37 years old. Student loan debt. Don't have a home. Barely have any savings. You know what I'm saying? Not saying don't have a home. I'm not homeless. You know what I'm saying? We rent a place. But, I wanted to be a homeowner by this time. And, I'm not. And I'm not saying I'm in a rush. But that's something I would like to be on the horizon. I'm trying to be the anti of my father. There for my kids. So, like, I try to be at every single thing they have. I try to be there. Whether it's band concerts, daddy-daughter dances, father and son nights. You know what I'm saying? I try to be there for my kids and include them in everything I do. That's why you've heard them on the podcast, and you will hear more of them on the podcast. Hey, we're going to sit down and have a discussion about Black Panther after we see Black Panther. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like all the things that my father couldn't do, I have to do for my kids. It's not I want to. I have to. And I do want to, but I have to do for my kids. Like, I remember, like going to games coming up. It was weird because none of my friends had dads. You know what I'm saying? It was normal, and it didn't seem abnormal, but it is abnormal for you not to be in your child's life. Unless you like in jail or like dead, there's no reason for you to not be in your child's life. Regardless of your relationship with their mother, you know what I'm saying? It's no reason for you not to be in your child's life. And, so I'm like, I'm going to be. And, my mom was upset when Robin and I decided to get married. And especially once I found out where I was going to be stationed and stuff after boot camp. My mom was like, well, y'all don't have to get married. You could be a father from a distance. I'm like, nah, I can't. I can't do that. Because to me, that's not what a man does. Now, like I said, there are some instances and, circumstances, but nah, I don't want to raise my kids like that. And plus, I love their mother, so, you know what I'm saying? It was just like, yo, why not? But I say that to say this, man. I'm like on a journey to find out who my father was. Like, it's funny because, I'll ask, my family some questions, or my family will tell me things like, oh, man, he smiled just like him, man. He had a smile that could light up a room. He had a laugh that was just like the most joyous things you ever heard. Like, I'm friends with one of his friends on Facebook, and every time I post a picture, man, he's like, man, you look just like your dad. Your dad would be so proud of you. And it's like, man, I hope he would. I hope he would see, the way I treat my mother, the way I treat my wife, that he'd be proud of me. Gramps too, you know what I'm saying? So, But that's it. Before I, get on here crying and all that stuff, I ain't, trying to have y'all no sympathy. All right. Yeah. If you don't want to, hit me with some sympathy, listens and downloads and shares to the podcast, hey, I'm down for that. But anyway, if you want your voice to be heard on the podcast, hey man, go to the Black Dad Chronicles Facebook page. I want to, and I haven't been doing my job when it comes to the podcast. The podcast is my baby, but I've kind of like stopped paying attention to this baby that I got. And, that's going to change too. I had to take a social media break, man. I had to. And that was just part of like everything emotional that, that I was going through and stuff like that. So part of that was like, I got off of social media. So I'm going to start being active on social again. I'm pretty active on Twitter just because like the only time at first I was only using Twitter during NBA season just because I love hoops. I love to talk basketball. It's easy to find a following on NBA Twitter, quote unquote, and just jump in a conversation and have dialogue about basketball and teams, your favorite team, wrestling also. But I'm going to be more active, especially when it comes to getting the podcast out there. Like I just got approved for a podcast in color. So the Black Dad Chronicles is now in their directory. So yeah, man, if you want to be part of the if you want to join the discussion on the Black Dad Chronicles, go to www.facebook.com/the Black Dad Chronicles. And just submit, just comment, comment on the podcast, comment on whatever questions I throw out, comment on, like, if tag some dads that that you want to get their story out. I got an interview with one of my best friends, the great Mark Nash, that I'll be posting. I called him the great Mark Nash. He's gonna hate me for calling him that, but he's like Mark is like my little brother. So I got an interview with him that'll be out on soon. You can follow me on Twitter. Like I said, if you want to talk on Twitter, my handle is _I'm Court. Search me there. We can have a discussion about fatherhood, talk about your relationship with your father, all that stuff. So next week, I think I'm going to continue this just because it's quite therapeutic. And I'm going to talk to y'all next week about, my grandfather, Hubert Harvey McIntosh. He was a great man in my life. I don't want to get into anything else because, I'm trying to save that for next week. So yeah, man, just tune in. Thanks for everybody showing love. Thanks for all the likes. Thanks for all the listens. Thanks for all, man, the love I get, when you guys, listen to my podcast. I'm just a guy. But man, I want to thank everybody for taking time out, 30 to 45 minutes of their day just to listen and share. One love. Peace.